This is the CineSnob Podcast.
There, welcome to episode 278 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Hi, Cody. How's it going?
Hey, I'm trying to. My hat's a little crooked. Trying to fix it.
Oh, it's that's what we call in the hat game a dad hat. Am I not?
It is a dad hat.
Correct. Yeah. That is the. I believe I have the same hat from the swag kit from Glass Onion.
Yeah.
A Knives Out Mystery.
Yeah, we got. What all did we get in that? We got the hat, a shirt,
like the red napkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a handkerchief sort of thing. We didn't get the box that had the vinyl in it. That was a different box. We still got a pretty cool box.
Yeah,
I actually wore the. What's that?
I was gonna say our stuff should be starting to come in here within the next few weeks.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I've already gotten a few things from another promotional stuff to talk about. We'll talk about later. We won't talk about it this week, but we will talk about some stuff later. Have you worn the shirt in public?
No, not in public. I've worn it around the apartment, but not in public.
Yeah, I didn't realize until I wore it out in public that it had like two
Double
two
birds?
fingers flipping the bird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I really care. I'm not going to a school or anything, but the people at Lowe's maybe didn't care for it too much.
I think maybe they did. When you
No,
think
I mean
about...
didn't care for it. I'm not that they didn't care, but I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know.
Deal with it, Lowe's.
Fuck
while
your
I
feelings.
Yeah. I just didn't realize. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the movies we're going to talk about this week, Cody, it is we are the day before Halloween, so it's the wrap up of spooky season.
Yes.
Or spoopy if you're a terrible online millennial.
Yeah,
but,
if you're terminally online.
Yeah. Anyway, so one of the films we're going to talk about this week is the adaptation of Five Nights at Freddy's. And before we get to the review, I want to talk a little bit about the strategy for release for this film. We talked about it a little bit last week. It was released day and date in theaters and on Peacock. Normally, not the strategy for winning the box office. However, Five Nights at Freddy's did had one of if not the best Halloween weekend opening ever at somewhere around $80 million. And in the process, I don't know if that's second or first, the first best or second best Universal opening this year. That includes Oppenheimer. Wow, what a strategy that really paid off. What are your thoughts on this, Cody?
Well, I mean, initially, my inclination is to say that Universal maybe did not expect this movie to perform at that level, or else they wouldn't have put it on Peacock. I don't think they would have just had like theatrical exclusivity. I don't know how they benefit from it. So I think it is like it probably caught them a little bit off guard. I don't remember. I believe that like there's a largely significant number of or data that states that the tickets were purchased by or attended by people under the age of like 35 or something like that. So it was definitely, geared towards families or like, what a horror movie might be for a family. So it had that potential that again, maybe quite honestly, I'll mention this during the review. I don't have any sort of association with the game, but maybe the game is popular enough to where it was tapped into the sort of love for the video game.
It's certainly one of the more merchandised video games I've seen in a long time. Clearly geared toward younger people, but it's not even that old. I think it's 9 years old. I believe the game was released in 2014, so it's a relatively new franchise.
And so again, I just don't. It's just such an interesting. So yeah, so an estimated 80% of the opening weekend audience under the age of 25.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, this is definitely a kids. I mean, the game is targeted towards kids. I guess all games were initially targeted towards children, but
yeah, but it's just such an interesting thing to see like what comes of this, because typically speaking, day and date has been something that has not led to box office success. Now it's pretty rare that a movie opens up in as many theaters as it did with Five Nights at Freddy's at the same time as it goes on a streaming platform, because most of the time it's like a smaller movie, or like a like an IFC movie will go day and date a lot of the time.
Right.
But it's just such an interesting thing, because what do you extrapolate from this? Like, does it show that it can be done? What do the Peacock numbers look like? Like, is this because nobody has Peacock?
That's my theory, is that
Yeah.
The penetration of Peacock is, pardon the innate pun there, but the penetration of Peacock is not it's not a Netflix, it's not a Disney Plus,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even an Amazon Prime, probably, to be fair. The idea that maybe it just escaped the knowledge of potential moviegoers that it actually was on Peacock. I don't know. I mean, I can't help but feel like that it's a little bit under the radar on Peacock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and which is kind of surprising, considering. Well, I guess it's not surprising, because again, I don't remember if ads showed that it was on Peacock, or if it was just in theaters on this date. Like, how much was Peacock part of the marketing campaign? I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting that when people are looking at this, a lot of people's first reactions are, well, they could have made so much more money if they just went fully theatrical.
Right.
So it clearly shows that, like, I think people are not necessarily looking at this as a victory for day and date, but more of like a surprise hit that could have been even bigger. Yeah,
and I mean, we've talked about this before. I think probably the last time in depth was with Knives Out, or A Glass Onion, and Knives Out mystery. The money that was left on the table. But I think that's a different take than this, because that was an exclusive 1 week run at Thanksgiving, I believe, for Knives Out, the Knives Out sequel. This one, I don't know what to make. I don't know what to make of it either, because what do? Do you subscribe to Peacock if you didn't go see it? Do you just go see it at the movie theater? Do you even know still that it's playing on Peacock? I don't know. This is a weird outlier in this whole thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to see it juxtaposed with something like Killers of the Flower Moon, which is a movie that doesn't even have a release date on Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus right now, but it's going there and has still made like close to $100 million globally. So, it's making money, and people are going rather than, waiting until it hits streaming, which people probably know that it's going to happen. But I just kind of like wonder what the difference is in this stuff. And like, clearly there is a sweet spot here. I mean, look, even if it's not a streaming service in particular, Saw 10 is already on streaming. It hit VOD, or not streaming, it hit VOD on Friday. And Exorcist, whatever the thing's called.
Believer.
Yeah, Exorcist Believer is already out on VOD. So the theatrical window is definitely shrinking. It's in terms of exclusivity. But like, what is the sweet spot? How does that determine, and what ends up happening?
Well, like, this movie's a huge hit. Earlier this year, also from Universal, another huge hit, the Super Mario Brothers movie, now lives on Peacock. What would have been the result had that been also day and date? Would it have been a huge hit? I mean, would it drive subscriber numbers? I mean, and that's kind of the metric that a lot of these streamers have been using in the past, like, loss leaders to drive subscription numbers.
Yeah.
Now that it's all kind of crumbling underfoot with these streamers offloading titles and trying to cut money or cut spending, I don't know what the future of that is. This is one of those things that I don't know what the lesson is going to be from it. Like, someone's going to take a lesson from it that's going to be wrong. And they're going to release a movie like a wide in theaters, and it's going to fucking flop because everybody watched it on whatever streamer.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of that is mitigated because, like, a lot of the big theatrical companies will not work with Netflix, for example. So, like, you can't find Netflix movies at, like, Regal. But for whatever reason, they worked it with Apple TV. So, I mean...
well, but that's, like, is that policy for if they're being released day and date? Because Killers of the Flower Moon was not day and date.
Well, it could be, but even so, usually what's been happening is like Netflix movies will get like a 1 to 2 week theatrical run, exclusive, and then it'll go to Netflix. So Netflix day and date is kind of dead at this point. At least during award season, what they're doing is like a limited theatrical run. But I don't think that that's changed in terms of them being at like AMC and Regal and Cinemark. I still don't think that they are there. They are with some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah, I don't know the politics of it all. Obviously, this one wasn't. This one, I guess they thought Peacock was no threat to the theatrical.
I guess so, or I mean, I really don't know. That's a great question to know why this was an exception to the rule. I mean, and it clearly it paid off for theaters because it's making a lot of money, and I can't imagine that it's streaming at the same level on Peacock.
Yeah,
but who knows? I mean, I don't think they've come out with any kind of numbers, but yeah, very interesting. I think I'm sort of like watching from afar, kind of wondering what ends up happening as a result of this, but clearly this is a thing that studios are still trying to work out, and figure out and learn from, because if anything, this swings the pendulum back into the direction of like, well, people want theatrical. So do we start seeing less, day and date just in general? I don't know. I
mean, when was the last time we really saw that though? Like, it's got to be some really small movie. There hasn't been a big movie do this. I mean, since the pandemic, right? Like since Warner Brothers did that with everything, I believe.
Yeah. Let me see
and I'm talking like large scale, like a movie that would be expected to drive numbers at the box office.
Yeah. I think that's probably fair. To say that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was.
It's got to be like as far back. I mean, it's got to be like Wonder Woman 1984, and like Dune, and things like all that Warner Brothers stuff that was like sort of released in theaters, but mostly released on HBO Max at the time.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a weird. It seems so bizarre to me. Like if you were gonna dump it on streaming, just dump it on streaming and move on. So it seems like it's all been NBC Universal, because if you remember, the last Halloween Ends last year was day and date, right. As well as like Marry Me and Firestarter were both day and date. It looks like Turning Red, the Pixar Pixar movie was day and date. Did that have a theatrical release? Because I thought those were just on Disney Plus.
No, that did have a theatrical release.
Okay.
Yeah,
but the other Pixar movies didn't. Like,
oh, you know what? I take that back. It had theatrical outside of North America.
Okay, yeah, because that was, I think, whatever this Elemental, or no, was it Lightyear was the last that wasn't straight to Disney Plus Pixar film. There's still Lightyear stuff at Target, by the way. Like, there's still it's still full price. I don't get it, but anyway, so why don't we've talked enough about the release. Anything else before we move on to talking about the movie itself?
No, let's move on.
All right.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, obviously, is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Job for you. Piece of cake, really. Give me it. It's a security gig.
Hello?
Welcome to Freddy's. Have you met them yet?
Met who?
Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy.
This is, as we discussed, an adaptation of a video game. We talked enough about the setup already. Cody, tell us about Five Nights at Freddy's and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so I don't know if the narrative of this movie matches the game in any way. I've never played the game. I don't know anything about it really. But the narrative is essentially you have this character who is who's basically kind of like haunted by his past, who has trouble holding down jobs, and ultimately gets a job to be a security guard overnight at this now defunct and closed sort of like Chuck E. Cheese Showtime sort of showbiz, excuse me.
Jesus fucking Christ, Cody.
I'm sorry, I wasn't
Showbiz
alive during the heyday of Showbiz Pizza.
Yeah,
I was a Chuck E. Cheese kid. Anyway,
sorry.
and it's like an analog for that, and so it's filled with like animatronic singing, performing animals or whatever. And anyway, and so he ends up being a security guard there, but there's some like nefarious dark shit going on where these things become killer, and all in the background of this is he's sort of like haunted by that past, as I mentioned, where his brother was kidnapped when they were children and never seen again, and he has a younger sister who he is also the caretaker of. That's all part of this, and yeah, so the whole narrative and story of this movie is just is really bad. I think it's tough because when you have something like this that is like horror movie based on animatronic pizza parlor, you would think that the horror of the movie is somehow derived from like how weird and like robotic and strange the animatronics look and how kind of creepy they are with their movements and stuff like that, mixed in with imagine if they were like killers. And the part that, there's parts like that is not where the horror really derives from in this movie. Not to mention, they don't look animatronic. They look too glossy. They look CG. And they don't really get any horror out of the idea that like they're creepy and unsettling looking, right? Like with their movements or like, the way that they sing or whatever, or play their instruments. Like there's nothing creepy about it within the context of this movie, which I think is a total missed opportunity, as well as, getting any sort of like sense of horror from anything involved with like the pizza parlor itself. Again, it's like a defunct thing that's been closed forever, and that's what makes it scary in the movie. I don't know. The worst sin that it commits, though, is bogging itself down with this kidnapping plot line that, after a while just like stops making sense, especially as it introduces this cop character who seemingly, like could have stopped all of this from happening from the get-go, which like really doesn't make any sense at all when you start to unravel it. It holds on to that secret for so long, and you know what it is, who the bad guy is immediately. Doesn't take anything to figure out who that is. But
like, what cast member have we not seen in
exactly
a long time?
Yeah. And it just gets so bogged down with this storyline that just doesn't really even make sense. When it starts to play into like what's behind the sort of animatronics and what's controlling them and how that fits into this kidnapping plot and how that fits into the sister's ability to like tap into all of this. None of it makes any sense. So much time is spent on it where like the animatronics are like 10 to 15% of the movie, and the rest is this kidnapping storyline with Josh Hutcherson and like his family. And so, the scares are like entirely built off of like cheesy, not even scary jump scares. It does not play off of the unsettling nature of animatronics in any way. It doesn't have anything smart to say about like technology taking over or anything, about like these robots killing people or whatever. It has nothing to say about that. It's a movie that, kind of exists to just sort of like explore like a little bit of nostalgia maybe, but like yet target audiences who would have no idea what's going on with it. You know, even like the LED lights and stuff are so CG. Like the signage outside, not LED, but like the signage outside with like the flickering lights looks really fake.
See, I didn't read the animatronics as CG. I read them as people in suits.
To me,
That's
it
how it
looks
looked
like
to me.
it looks CG to me. It looked
the-
too glossy. I was watching in 4K though, so I mean,
Oh, hold on. The
Yeah.
design is definitely not not what you. It's not the Chuck E. Cheese. It's ripped straight from the game.
but I
essentially.
don't think even like the eyes blinking are practical. I mean, that looked all CG to me.
I don't know. I mean, it's
But it
likely
also-
a mixture.
But it looked too good to have been from another time too, in terms of like,
What do you mean?
like just like the eyelids, they looked glossy. Like they didn't look like old 80s.
Oh,
It didn't look like it was from the 80s.
by the way, did you get that the movie was set in 2000?
No, why would I?
Because there was one on-screen graphic that said it, a security camera.
Yeah,
Everything
no.
else, nothing else gives you any sort of indication.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So anyway, I just spend way too much time in this plot line that doesn't matter, that you don't care about, that doesn't make sense. And then the way that it all unfolds does so in a way where it's like super obvious. It's not scary. It's not unsettling. It doesn't play into anything that's creepy. You know, you have these reveals from characters where it's like, well, why wouldn't you have done something previously about this?
Yeah.
And yeah, so for me, just like total miss.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can appreciate the nostalgia factor that they're going for here, and that the game went for this. The idea that that these animatronic characters come to life and kill people. I mean, it seems like a pretty cut and dried premise. I don't know what the fuck they're doing over baking this movie like this.
Yeah.
Because there's so much shit in it. First of all, like immediately the relationship between Josh Hutcherson's character and his sister is muddy as shit for like the first 20 minutes. I think I told you, like, I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be his daughter or if it was supposed to be.
So again, you want to talk about something that has one throwaway line in it. There is a scene early on where he's getting ice cream before he like punches the guy in the fountain.
Yeah.
And the ice cream girl says something like, "Oh, your sister's really gonna love this," and that's it. That's the only connection. It's one line. Yeah, blink if you miss it.
It took until like some scene with, I think, like the aunt character, I believe. I don't remember, but it was like, oh, that's the really, because like why is his aunt trying to take custody of his daughter? Plus, Josh Hutcherson looks old. Like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. It's very muddy and confusing to begin with. That seems very unnecessary for the plotting of this movie, along with the idea that he's haunted by this kidnapping that really makes up most of the plot. Like most of his plot line is taken up by this, and you juxtapose that with the overall sort of comedic horror that this animatronic stuff is going for. Like this is meant to be like a Chucky situation, or at worst like a Megan situation, where there's an inherent sense of humor to it all. But this movie plays it totally fucking straight.
No, there's no
kidnapping
camp.
plot. With this this kidnapping plot line is so dark for a movie that has action figures based on the characters. Like it just doesn't make any kind of sense as to why they bogged this movie down with this story that's so dark and unrelated to what the hell the fucking movie, like what people came to the movie for. I don't know the plot line of the game. I don't believe it has this much lore in it. And I don't know why they chose to expand it like this. And look, I know that I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth here, because we talked about the Super Mario Brothers movie just being a straightforward adaptation of the game that didn't try to do anything new with it.
Sure.
This does that. I assume it does something like that, but it does it in a really terrible way.
Yeah.
In a way that's just boring and off-putting and just not very fun.
No, it isn't fun. And and also I just like it has these like weird components to it of like lucid dreaming and like
yeah.
and it's all like there's like almost like a supernatural connection to it as well that just like again has nothing to do with like nostalgia for this type of place that actually did exist or does exist in some capacity now. Like there's nothing like taken from that's horror related, comedy related, like nostalgia related. It's just almost like background dressing to this kidnapping plot.
Yeah. Like this is supposed to be about animatronic things that come to life and kill people. Like that's the fucking log line of this thing. That's the elevator pitch. And no, it's Josh Hutcherson is haunted by the kidnapping of his brother, I guess 20 something years ago. I don't know how old he's supposed to be playing in the movie.
I don't either.
None of the details really line up into place. Like I said, did you know it was taking place in the year 2000? Nope. You wouldn't have noticed unless you paid attention to one chyron on the screen when he's in like a security camera. It's like a security camera thing. What's the deal with the cop character's relationship to another character? Why is this happening like this?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And if she was so disturbed by it all, like, why didn't she just, do her job?
And then, like, why is the character at the end doing what he's doing? Like, why is the antagonist, like, what's his motivation? Like he's doing really unspeakably evil things. And anyway, this movie is not good. The success of it means we will get some sort of sequel. I wonder what that will be. I can't imagine anybody seeing this that was a fan of the game and being like, oh, that was good. Like, I just don't understand what the mechanics of the expansion were meant to do. Anyway, Cody, what's your grade for Five Nights at Freddy's?
For me, it's a C-. It's a pretty bad movie.
Yeah, C- for me too. I can't even get on board with the nostalgia, or the fake nostalgia of it all being, being a fan of Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese and things like that. But it is streaming now on Peacock if you want to watch it at home and you don't want to haul your ass to a theater. So
yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next movie, When Evil Lurks.
Hay un embichado en el pueblo.
Estás asustando a mi familia.
¡Lo vi con mis propios ojos! ¡Estuve con él! Esto va a ser un infierno.
This is an Argentinian horror film. You saw this. Did you see this at a festival? I can't remember.
Yeah, Fantastic Fest last month.
Yeah, and this is released by Shudder. It's on Shudder here, streaming, correct? Is that?
Yeah, so it had like a 1 week theatrical run, and now it's on Shudder.
All right, tell us about When Evil Lurks and what you thought of it, Cody.
Yeah, so as I said, this was a movie I saw at Fantastic Fest. Something where I kind of followed the buzz on it, where I missed its first screening, but I heard a lot of people talking about it, just kind of in conversations, and so I got a ticket to it and went in not knowing what to expect. And it's interesting because it has a relatively simple story, which is that these two brothers notice or find out that there is a possessed person in kind of like their village, and they go through the process of trying to like get rid of the body, but they don't go through the proper exorcism rites to do so. And so basically the sort of possession starts spreading throughout their village, and they're basically trying to kind of like outrun and the possession while also working to try to properly perform the exorcism. And that's basically it. And the rest of what happens in the movie is like is all kind of like vibes and scary stuff, and there's no other way to put it other than like this movie goes hard, and and it does so in a way where, like, you know, occasionally you'll watch a horror movie where it's like, this is not like the scariest thing I've ever seen, but man, it's hardcore. And I really loved how hardcore the movie goes with a lot of different things. You know, one thing I think that happens off the bat is that you can see that they use a lot of practical effects for the sort of gruesomeness of a lot of stuff. So, you know, very early on, you see like a body that's split in half that's like practical and looks really gross. And then you cut to the actual person that's possessed, and that's some amazing makeup work that's like truly gross, and like, you know, the Thing style where it's like all gooey and and really nasty looking.
Kind of reminded me of Seven a little bit.
Yeah. Good call out. And then as it goes along, the kind of the stakes continue to escalate to the point where like there's just a lot of really messed up stuff that starts happening. And I was actually talking to Kiko about it. I saw him the other last night. We were talking about it, and he put it really well, which is like the director sort of like breaks the rules of what you should be doing in movies in terms of like it is unflinching in its violence towards like certain, you know, people and things, I guess you could say. And it does so in ways that are like legitimately shocking. You know, the turns that it takes, you know, there's one scene in particular that that you can kind of see coming, but like the collective gasp in our theater was pretty crazy. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And then like the ensuing thing that happens after that. And there's just like really smart plot lines that occur throughout in terms of like how it deals with it. You know, it's 100% serious, but like, you know, one thing that I thought was like really dark and messed up, but like kind of smart was like, there's a plot line where like the demon has trouble possessing a certain character.
Yeah.
Which I was like, God damn, that's messed up, but that's such a smart detail. I loved that detail of it. And then it ends super fucked up too. Like there's just like, you know, there's like really, one piece of imagery that I love too, that I thought was just, again, really unsettling, was like, there's a scene where a character is driving down the street, and then out of the window, you see two characters that you saw previously in the movie in different states, I'll just say, while walking. And just like the unsettling imagery of it, the sort of, the practical effects nature of it, the idea that it goes really hard and like shows you like really messed up stuff, but not in a way that feels like it's like exploitation or it's like, you know, torture porn or whatever, but like like legitimately unsettling stuff. I do think that the second half of the movie in the possession, or excuse me, the exorcism stuff is maybe a little bit less successful than the build up towards it. But man, this is my favorite horror movie of the year I've seen.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really brutal. There's some, we saw it in the trailer. There's a scene with a goat.
Yes.
That has a very like good. I don't know how to phrase it, but like good acting from a goat.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got the goat to do this, but probably just pushed it. But it's super unsettling. It really does go for it. I think if there's one complaint I have, is that it kind of drops you in with no real kind of sense of direction.
Sure.
Like this is you know, it's modern, it's a modern setting, but everybody's kind of bought into this evil thing. And that's, you know, and that's small potatoes compared to it. And maybe it's just a touch too bleak by the time it wraps up.
Sure.
I mean, there's kind of
a button on it that's kind of,
Yeah, but it's like it's just sort of a hopelessness at the end
Mhm.
of it. It's not quite what I expected. I mean, you can kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit at certain points. But yeah, you're right. There's some great like reveals through there. Like you said, the scene of the one of the brothers like spotting two characters through the window.
Mhm.
That's just dark as shit.
Yeah.
You know, the very the one you talked about too, where there's like the demon has trouble possessing a certain character because of a certain state. It's interesting. It's really well done.
Yeah.
There's I assume the scene you're talking about being very shocking is takes place let's just say under a dining room table.
Yep.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy. That scene is crazy. The scenes right after it are crazy. And the kind of like the little button at the very end of that little sequence is like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the exorcism stuff is not quite as successful. You've again got like a wizened old lady kind of telling these dipshits what they're doing wrong. It's kind of an exorcism trope at this point, but I think it works. I mean, it is, you know, I mentioned it's Argentinian, so it's all in Spanish. Not really a deterrent, I don't think, to anything, you know, to watching. I mean, who gives a shit? And read the subtitles, but yeah, I mean, really creepy, really well done. Like I said, if there's one complaint I have, and it's minor, is that it's just sort of drops you into this without sort of any bearings. But
Yeah.
What's your grade for When Evil Lurks, Cody?
Well, yeah, I mean, and look, and I just want to make this point too. Like, it is a really fine line to draw with like shocking for the sake of shocking versus like seeing as much as you can get away with versus like shocking and it serves the narrative. Like, it could have gone in a way where it's like, okay, well, this is just meant for shock value, but its moments within the context of the movie are like truly unsettling, and it's really effective at creating that vibe and creating that mood. And I never thought that it was done to a point where it's like over the top, to a point where it's like, okay, this is offensively gross. I think that everything really fits, and I really appreciate how bleak and dark it is. Like, again, there's no light in the movie anywhere.
Yeah.
And so if you're into that stuff, and if you're into horror that pushes the boundaries, but does so in a way that like tells an interesting story, I think you're gonna like it. I think it's extremely well directed. I am dying to see what this director ends up doing, because I think there's a lot of chops here from the filmmaking perspective. So I give it a B+. I do think it's the best horror movie of the year.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. B+. I was really impressed by it. Really, there is some, like I said, there's some great, and like you said, there's some great directorial touches. Like we saw the scene, like where the goat like presses its forehead against the barrel of a shotgun. Like, it's a crazy,
Yeah.
like fucked up thing to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, B+. This is streaming on Shudder right now, so if you've got access to that, definitely check it out. It's really well done. Let's move on to our last movie, Anatomy of a Fall.
Tu m'as dit que t'avais entendu tes parents au moment où t'es sorti de la maison, c'est ça?
En fait, j'entendais pas vraiment les mots, j'avais que des bouts de voix, mais ça faisait...
oui, mais non, enfin, si t'avais pas les mots, du coup, tu peux pas savoir si c'était une dispute ou pas.
Enfin, je sais ce que j'ai entendu.
So, as you know, the autopsy report is inconclusive about the cause of death.
Stop. I did not kill him.
That's not the point.
Il parle de tromperie.
I was honest about it.
Mais vous l'avez pas été l'année de sa mort avec cette fille avec qui vous l'avez trompé, pourquoi? Il y a quand même quelque chose d'un peu étrange dans cette situation. Vous admettez qu'il était jaloux?
No, I don't know. No.
Allez, écoutez-vous, on a l'impression que vous l'avez trompé continuellement.
Quand il commencerait à se reprocher des trucs, moi je préfère m'en aller.
Tu peux pas me dire qui était le plus énervé des deux?
Non.
I didn't see this movie. Cody, you did. Tell us about Anatomy of a Fall and what you thought of it.
Sure. So this is a movie that it's a French movie, though I will say it's probably at least like 40% in English, as you saw from the clip there, mainly because it's dealing with a German woman who was married to a French man, and she gets put on trial. I'll explain why in a second. In his like home country, and so English is the sort of language that they can sort of meet in the middle on, because she doesn't know French and he doesn't know German all that well. I mean, she doesn't know French all that well. He doesn't know German. So anyway, so again, another movie with a really like simple storyline, which is we have this character played by Sandra Hüller who is a writer, and she, in the first scene of the movie, she's giving an interview, and then her husband starts to sort of like passive aggressively play really loud music, which causes her to end the interview. And her husband is upstairs working in the attic during this, and then some time passes, and he is found dead outside, having fallen from the attic, and is spotted and found by their child, who has vision issues, which plays into the narrative a little bit. And essentially, she is after some time, indicted for murder and is put on trial, where it's they're arguing that she murdered him, and she's arguing that it was a suicide. And so basically, it's largely a courtroom drama, where I would say a little bit like half or a little bit more than half plays out through testimony and in cross-examination and stuff like that. So it's mostly a courtroom drama. So the reason this movie has significance is that it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and has had a lot of Oscar buzz. It was not selected by France as the submission for the Oscars, but there is some buzz that it may, still get nominated for several awards. And for me, I think that the performance from Sandra Hüller is nomination worthy. I think it's the best part of the movie, where she gets to play this really conflicted, person who, was clearly having some marriage issues, but is dealing with the loss and also dealing with, their son, trying to make sense of everything. And, their son, who is, I don't know that they ever state his age specifically, but he's, I would assume, somewhere between like 10 to 12 years old. And like him trying to figure out who he believes or what story he believes. It does some things that I find that I appreciated from a filmmaking perspective, where the audience doesn't know really what happened. So the audience is kept in the dark. The audience is sort of serving as the jury as part of the movie. So it's not like the audience knows like, oh, she killed him, or oh, it was suicide. You're seeing the whole thing play out. And it does some interesting things where, like, they're listening to a tape that happened, like, of a recorded argument the day before, and when they play the tape, you cut to actually like seeing the two people argue, but then like violence starts to occur and the visual cuts out and it goes back to the tape. So like you again don't know what actually happened and what you're hearing. So I like that it kind of still lets the audience decide and imagine like what might be the case and what's going on. It does come to a somewhat of a conclusion by the end of it. The drawbacks are that it's like 2.5 hours long. It's a long movie, and I will say that while there is some intriguing courtroom stuff, I think courtroom dramas have a ceiling to them sometimes, where it can only be so interesting for an extended period of time. It does sort of kind of get bogged down in the sort of cross-examination part where, it's really just no other means than to show, the further intricacies of the character played by Sandra Hüller. I will also say that it has a really good child acting performance in it from Milo Machado Graner, is the actor's name. And I think he does a really good job of expressing his conflict. There's some stuff that happens behind the scenes that require him to be really emotional, and I think he does a really good job. And with child performances, it can kind of make or break a movie, and in this case, I think it makes it better. Is it worthy of its sort of like Oscar Best Picture buzz? In my opinion, probably not, but it is a really solid sort of legal thriller, I guess you could call it. It's not really all that thrilling, but legal drama that I think definitely is worth watching for its lead performance.
What's your grade for I forgot what this is called, Anatomy of a Fall?
I give Anatomy of a Fall a B. Solid, but slightly unspectacular for me personally.
All right, that's gonna do it for this week. Next week, Cody, it's pretty sparse. I'm not sure what we're gonna cover. Let's see, what is in there.
Well, we have Priscilla that comes out, the A24 movie about Priscilla Presley. We also have Radical, a movie that I saw at Sundance.
Oh yes,
with Eugenio Derbez. That I think would be good to talk about, and then I'll have a little bit of a Austin Film Festival recap.
Oh, that's right. You know, I didn't manage to get to the press screening of Priscilla. I feel I don't know. Have you seen Priscilla yet?
No, I don't think that they're screening it here.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it, but it screened it like 3 weeks ago and didn't make it out. Anyway, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. You can find us on Twitter at CineSnob, Facebook CineSnobNet, youtube.com/cinesnob. Anything else, Cody, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, well, I wanted to preview 2 other movies because maybe, if we don't want to head to a theater, there are some VOD things coming out.
Go ahead.
So there's also Quiz Lady,
yes.
the Hulu movie with Sandra Oh and Awkwafina. And then there is an Apple TV movie called Fingernails that has Riz Ahmed and who else is in that movie? It's Riz Ahmed and Jesse Buckley.
Ryan, Jeremy Allen White is in there too. Yeah.
So those 2 movies. So we will. So some semblance of like a combination of those movies will be on the show.
We'll see what happens. All right. Anything else now before we wrap up, Cody?
No, that's all.
All right. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.